Well, good morning and good afternoon, wherever you may be. Welcome to Zyxel's Tech Talk with me, Nguyen. I'm one of the product managers and sales manager here at Zyxel North America. If you can hear me okay, just go ahead and raise your hand real quick just to say, hey, I can hear you just fine. If not, hopefully you'll be able to fix your sound or you can use your chat message. But hey, this is going to be an interactive time where you can ask questions, learn more about Zyxel and all of the products that we have available to you, everything from all of our product lines. And so we want it to be interactive. So make sure if you use the Q&A section, you can always send me questions. If you want to ask while I'm doing the presentation, that would be fantastic. So just let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot of slides to cover. Again, welcome for being either a partner with us or looking at becoming a partner. How many of you have already signed up to become a partner by just a show of hands? Okay. All right, great. All right, so let's go ahead and let's just jump on in. So an introduction of Zyxel. Zyxel is a company now that is worldwide. We're Zyxel Networks. We've been around for 30 years, since 1989. We have over 700,000 businesses that work with Zyxel solutions. Making 100 million devices are making those kinds of connections. We have 600 employees worldwide serving 150 global markets. So we're internationally recognized for our innovation and our design. So we've won a bunch of awards throughout the world, including some 2020 Innovations Awards through CES this year for some of our products. So we pride ourselves in what we do and what we create. We also pride ourselves in our testing, our interoperability with products in the security space. We've been certified for the last 20 years continuously, meaning that for the last 20 years, we've gone through ICSA certified labs to get our firewall, our VPN certifications, all of that. It's just to prove that, hey, it is interoperable with other products that also are ICSA certified. We are solutions driven. So we are using feedback from partners like yourself in what you see in the market and what your customers tell you, or the direct customers that talk to us. We feed that back to our R&D resources to either create new product or new solutions, new software, new feature sets to help you do your business. So we provide a whole solution end-to-end in many of the cases for small businesses, and to be able to provide you a complete solution for your network needs. So this is where we have that end-to-end comprehensive network delivery solutions, security appliances, wireless solutions, Ethernet for your backbone, your gateway solutions for maybe hotspot connectivity, and being able to manage that all in a network. Being able to do either in the cloud managed or in the standalone within the existing network. So we have lots of solutions, lots of variations that you can use to fulfill your different applications and needs. So I wanted to start off first with security. I think because I am the security product manager here at Zyxel, it's one of those things where I really believe in security in general, making sure your network is secure, especially nowadays in our environment. There's always an existence for threats. So we want businesses to protect themselves, be smart about it, and use these different ways to protect their businesses, their homes. But ultimately, it comes down to partners like yourself to help educate these customers on why they need these kinds of solutions, rather than just going and buying kind of an off-the-shelf, basic firewall that you can find, in the kind of the open market. This one is a lot more powerful, and we'll talk about reasons why. How you can protect your businesses more. So some statistics, 54% of businesses think that they're too small for cyber attacks. And this is totally untrue. They just think they're too small. Small businesses have no understanding of how to protect themselves either against different types of cyber attack. So this is where your value comes into play, where you get to educate and also provide a solution to your customers that help to fulfill the protection that they need. 60% of small businesses that are victim of cyber attacks go out of business within 6 months. That's incredible. The fact that such damage could happen because of these kinds of attacks. It could either cause wipeouts of data, information, and they can't recover from it if they don't have appropriate protection. 43% of breach victims are actually small businesses. So that's quite a lot. Again, they think that they're not going to be the target, that it's only the big guys in the news, but in fact, they are part of the same internet that everybody else is. So they're, a lot of the viruses and malware, they're not looking for any specific person most of the time. They're just going out and looking for any hosts that they can infect. Now, there was a 424% increase in new small business cyber breaches last year. So again, I think it's just a matter of time. Every 39 seconds, there's a hacker attack. 54% of small business don't have a plan in place for even reacting to those kinds of cyber attacks either. So they don't know about it, and they don't have any plans or any kind of recovery plan for that. And again, that's where you come into play, because otherwise it's just a matter of time. People think, hey, it's not going to happen to me, so it's not on their radar, and so they don't protect it. And usually they'll protect after the fact, and that's usually the kind of the bad mentality about it, where you're finally going to get protection after you've already been hit, right? So we want to help to reverse that and make sure that we are promoting security and safe network security by offering these kinds of products and actually showing value. I think that's the biggest one, is people don't see what happens on the network, and so they just assume nothing's going on. But if you can show what's going on, what's being protected, what's getting blocked with the information that you have available through these products, you can really show value of how much worth these kinds of security products are worth for you. Now, of course, more applications in the network means that you need more speed. So there's a contrast here. You need more speed, but you need to be more secure at the same time. And typically now users are using 3 or 4 different connected devices, voice, video, data applications. In the background, they may be doing backups and all sorts of things. And so different connections also provide different speeds. And some of them can go from 100 megabits all the way up to a gigabit of speed. So it's really easy for end users or for even your customers to do speed tests today. So a lot of service providers even provide their own speed test kind of capabilities, but it's really easy to go on, push a button and see, okay, this is my internet speed. Now, if your firewall has any kind of bottleneck, or if it's slower than the internet speed that they've purchased, then they'll immediately notice that. Before, in the past, that was never a problem, because the internet speeds were maximum, say 50 megabits to 100 megabits. So it's well within ranges of even previous generation firewalls. But today, it's accelerated so fast, and the need, especially now from home or from remote offices, the speed are much higher. So now you have to provide a security level that's really high, but still maintain those high speeds without sacrificing that security. So that becomes a kind of a challenge for us. But you want to be able to protect against a lot of different things: malware, antivirus, content filter, and being able to control what websites people can go to, just to, again, prevent infection, prevent malware downloads, prevent ransomware, sites, those kinds of things. Layer 7 application management, being able to detect what software is actually being used through your connection and be able to control that. So having the ability to control, let's say, Facebook traffic or YouTube access, or block illegal downloads from a torrent or BitTorrent type application. Those are all required, all require like a layer 7 scanning, an intrusion detection type scanner to block those kinds of software. GeoIP enforcement allows for you to block either traffic in or out, going to specific countries or areas that you may see as potential threats. Botnet, malware, intrusion prevention, reputation filters, those are, again, all important on making sure hackers and information does not get sent to certain places where they should not go. We'll talk a little bit more about sandboxing and machine learning in a later section, but that's also a key. That's kind of the next level of security. It's kind of your maximum way of blocking unknown threats. So I wanted to introduce our new product. It's called the USG Flex. This is our firewall. If you've used our USGs before, this is our next generation, basically USG. It's called USG Flex, and it comes in different models that kind of are similar to what the ATP model line that we've had over the past year and a half or so. They follow in the same kind of positioning line, but I wanted to introduce you to that to this product, because this is, I think, moving forward, this is going to be the majority of most people's applications in the SMB. And so I want to make sure that this is a kind of a good focus. You can still buy the old, current generation or previous generation USG models if you have applications or projects that are still, utilizing that. These will still work perfectly fine. But if you're looking for that next step, whether it's like higher end connectivity with higher end security type functions, this is the USG Flex. And then of course, if you want to go to the next level, our flagship is our ATP series. So I'll cover all of those as well. But first of all is USG Flex. What is USG Flex? This might be the first time you've heard of USG Flex. So USG Flex comes currently in three models right now: USG Flex 100, the 200, and the 500. And it pretty much scales on either port densities or port configurations. But most importantly, it's the UTM performance scale. So that's where you may want to start as a new partner. If you say, hey, which firewall do I need to put in for my customer who has, let's say, a 500 meg connection, right? So, let's say, for example, like a 300 meg connection. 300 meg connection, usually you'll need something that is probably twice that in terms of UTM, because if you look at the UTM number here, like USG Flex 200, the data sheet will say, okay, it has a UTM of 600 megabits per second. So 600 megs per second using, that's the E stands for express mode. So 600 megs per second, it typically is about 50% of that number, 50 to 60%. So you want to take that and use that as your benchmark on what the max speed is if you turn on all the UTM functionalities. Okay, so UTM, let's say USG Flex 200 has an express mode UTM of 600 megabits per second. So that will fulfill your needs for a 300 meg connection. So you want to kind of gauge that while you're speccing out which customer and then move to the appropriate product. Now, express mode actually is a little bit more efficient than just being half because it's actually not doing a scanning in there. So you actually are going to get much more than 300. I would say more like 4 to 450 in a USG Flex 200. But again, it all varies, depends on what kind of traffic you're doing, what kind of applications you're moving and using through the product. So that's just kind of a gauge there. We will release a higher end models of USG Flex coming soon. But you'll also notice, just keep these numbers in mind because they will also map to the same kind of product positioning of our ATP series. Okay, so we'll keep that in mind. Again, we certified with ICSA with these products. And we've also partnered with some key leading partners for our backend solution system for all the security, for the content filtering. So McAfee, WebRoot, Lastline, Trend Micro, Bitdefender, so some of the names that are in the background providing you these kinds of security services and signatures. From your front end, it doesn't matter. You just apply the appropriate licensing and for content filtering, and whoever it is in the background, it's doing its job to making sure that it's secure. So we have released what we call Express Mode. So I want to introduce Express Mode to you. It's been designed to use basically the cloud to enhance the scan capabilities and the speed capabilities on malware detection. So it's using this engine, using the cloud, and to provide, leveraging all of the database. I think there's about 30 billion hashed information that's there that is of malware information. And so using the cloud, we're able to detect files that are going through if it has malware or not. It doesn't actually have to do a scan on it because it just looks at, is this file has malicious information in it, and then provides that information to this device. So the USG, our current USG, our USG Flex, and the ATP all support Express Mode. In Stream Express Mode. So using the scan Cloud Query Express Mode. But you just have to have the correct firmware. So for the USGs, 4.38 is when we have that Express Mode capabilities. You can still do your deep scan mode, so you can decide which one you want to do that just uses signatures, a signature base. If you want to go to the ATP series, you actually can do a hybrid mode, meaning that you can do both the cloud streaming or the cloud scanning and the stream mode at the same time, because that is a higher end product that allows for you to do that. So it evolves because the cloud database will continue to evolve, and it just makes things faster overall. Being able to look up things without having to actually scan them and to immediately still be able to tell if it has a virus or not. So it's doing hash matching over the cloud. Now, some advantages, it's faster, and the intelligence will continue to evolve. But some disadvantages is that it won't work in isolated environments because you need internet connectivity to check the cloud information. Now, there's going to be some information that's stored locally to have some buffer room, but there may be instances where you where you have to keep checking the cloud, but you have to have internet connection. Mutant malware, so maybe new ones that come out, or maybe just slightly alter themselves and changes their hash table. Those may be skipped initially until they get a hash table information from that. So that's part of the one of the disadvantages of that. Supports the deep scan supports offline protection, and it's better for new malware detection if the signature exists throughout. But the disadvantages of the throughput is limited by the hardware, right? You can only scan so fast and so much data. So that's why the UTM throughput can be affected by that. And the number of signatures that you can house within the device at that time is limited as well, based on the memory. But the ATP with the hybrid mode gives you kind of the best protection because it does both best of both worlds. But the disadvantage is that there is a higher cost because you having to subscribe basically to a higher end hardware that supports the services. All right, so Security Flex features. One thing you need to know, people may ask, hey, I have a current USG model now. What do I do? It has still 6 months or whatever, has services still there, web content filtering, IDP, antivirus, email, or SecuReporter, whatever it is. So what we do is when we can transfer, we can migrate your USG models to the USG Flex and migrate your security services with it. So let's say there is a kind of discrepancy. There's different times because they added the services at different times, and there's no kind of co-termination. Let's say web filtering, you still had 7 months left, but all of your other services were less than 7 months. Now, here at Zyxel, what we're going to be doing is that on your migration to the new USG Flex, we're going to extend all the other services that you have there and move them all to the largest licensing that you have left on your USG. So here in this example, 7 months left, we're going to normalize all the other services that you have already purchased and move them all to 7 months when you transfer it over to a USG Flex. Now, of course, if you buy a USG Flex that already has, let's say, a year's worth of service because you bought a bundled version of the USG Flex, because it comes with 12 months, we're going to add that to that 7 months. So in the case of this particular migration, you're going to have a USG Flex that ends up with 19 months of UTM services, right? So all across the board for this bundled modeling here. So just keep that in mind as you are moving and you're migrating. That will help you with that migration. These are some of the migration mappings that you want to look at. USG 40 series goes to the USG Flex 100. The 60W and the 60s go to a USG Flex 200. 110 goes to 500. USG 210 and 110 kind of combine into the similar hardware and become the USG Flex 500. The USG 310 will have a USG Flex 700 that's supposed to be available later this year, maybe this quarter, but probably the end of the year, that will have the USG Flex 700 come out. Again, for the higher end, if you're going to move to the higher end models, like our 1000 series, we tell you to probably go to our ATP 800 series or higher. So take a look at that. We also support AWS and Microsoft Azure. We are actually only 7 brands in the world that have the VPN gateway validated for both AWS for Amazon and for Microsoft Azure. So we have models, pretty much all of our security products, our VPN series, our USG Flex, all those models are all part of this capability to support both. So if you have any cloud connections or people are using, let's say, Amazon to manage their DNS or manage their file shares or certain applications, their Salesforce or whatever it is that they're doing, their CRM, they have to have a product that actually can build and certified to build a tunnel to Amazon to provide that service. And we've been approved for that. So definitely there's opportunities for those kinds of applications. If you are looking for that, Zyxel has product. Our portfolio, just in general, I'm going to quickly speed through these. We already talked about the USG. This is pretty much our all-in-one firewall gateway with UTM services. Again, this is going to be a little bit more cost-effective right now versus your USG Flex. So again, if you're just more at a budget and you want to have, it's less than 100 megs or less than 300 megabits per second connectivity, these are still perfectly fine and work perfectly fine for those applications. So you have your 40, your 60, your 110, and again, it scales from ports, port differentials, how you use them, optional ports, all the way up to your higher throughput UTM. But you'll notice too that the UTM throughputs here on a USG 310, it's going to be a little faster on the USG Flex models. But again, it depends on your trade-off, or maybe you have a project that's already been using some of these products. You can still maintain those products here. Now, our ATP firewall is our flagship product. It is our highest end firewall security appliance because it offers all of your UTM features that we talked about earlier, but includes sandboxing. And sandboxing is an AI technology in the cloud that lets you see or lets you help to detect new variants of malware or even like zero-day type attacks. So it uses that, it has an enhanced UTM. You can still do device high availability. All of our firewalls have a wireless controller built in. So if you use our business class products, you can actually use and merge those APs to provision, to enable those APs within the device itself without having to have a separate controller. No extra controller, no extra software. So we have to go beyond conventional. Sometimes the threats that are out there are unconventional. So advanced threat protection, the ATP, goes to look at some of these malwares in a different way and be able to provide a zero-day type attack protection. So conventional UTM, you're kind of locked in and required to know of its signatures. So once you have the signatures and reputations and heuristics, you can tell, hey, if it's known good or known bad. So you can really block or allow things pretty easily. But what comes into an issue is the gray areas. You may be good, may be bad, looks kind of suspicious, but because I don't have a direct signature that says so, I can't really, I don't know what to do, right? The firewall doesn't know what to do, so that traffic kind of passes through. Now, ATP uses sandboxing, and we use AI to manage that. So we can actually detect things that are unknown. So we can protect unknown security threats. And I'll tell you how we do that in just a second. So, signatures, things like that, we're not based on those anymore. We can block suspicious traffic while maintaining really high throughputs and speeds. And again, very important in this day and age with higher internet speeds to be able to still provide a very high level of security and still maintain high speeds throughput. So unknown files that don't have a matching for any kind of security scanning or things like that are isolated and put into a sandbox. So the sandbox is basically in the cloud. And we use cloud intelligence to identify those threats. We analyze them in real time. We establish if they are safe or not. And then, of course, the database constantly updates. Now, the cool thing is that it uses machine learning to evolve, and it grows stronger and gets more information with every kind of attack or new threat that's found out there. The cool thing, though, is it's part of an ecosystem. So the whole cloud intelligence, all part of this whole ecosystem that is shared. So let's say we have an unknown file, an unknown threat in a zip file, for example. It goes off, we send it off into the cloud. The cloud actually emulates it in the sandbox. It sees if there's any kind of packets or patterns and things like that, whatever it may be doing, it sees its behavior, and then it uses that information to identify, is this a malicious attack? Is it trying to make a connection to some server in some country? Is it trying to execute an executable file to do something, whatever it may be, right? We identify it, and we get some defense intelligence out of it. We create a signature within the cloud, and that database is passed on to other devices that are using that cloud. So that's, again, part of that ecosystem. All of the ATP series, all of the products that use sandboxing from here to the future will all have the protection of those malware that we detected in the 0-day using, again, it's not just Zyxel, but Zyxel with all those security partners that you saw earlier that we utilize in order to determine, hey, is this a threat or not? So the ATP, like I mentioned, it has the same numbering as the USG Flex, so ATP 100. You have an ATP 100W, an ATP 200, an ATP 500, 700, and 800. So eventually you'll see USG Flex numbers that will kind of be similar to that to match along those. And again, it's all about positioning. You still have to look at the throughput numbers of the AV-ITP throughputs. And again, take 50 to 60% of that, and that gives you that gauge of what kind of internet connection it's suitable for, right? So that will make sure that you have the right spec Of course, the lower end models like will probably run in most situations if you're not doing full UTM, you know, and again, it depends on your application and what you're trying to do. But that's a good ballpark. What is SecuReporter? So SecuReporter is an add-on bundle or an add-on software that lets you get some reporting information. It does analysis, it does threat reporting, it does alerting, monitoring, it gives you a visual of what's going on within your network as well. So I mentioned earlier, how do you monetize or how do you prove to a customer that, hey, these security services are worthwhile? Well, SecuReporter is one of those tools that you have available to provide you that information to your customers. In fact, you can do custom, you can do some custom reports as well. So let's say you have a monthly report that says, here's are all the threats that were blocked, what devices were using the most bandwidth, what websites were most visited, and you know, whatever analysis you want to put on there. You can customize these reports and have it email it to you or to your customer on a monthly basis, again, to show, hey, this is what we charged you for, these are all your threats you protected against, and this is all the information you need. And this is why you need one of these boxes, right? So we even have the capability to give you like a 30-day trial on the security licenses. So if you bought, let's say, the USG Flex unbundled without any of the licenses on it, you can enable the 30-day trial, have your customer try it out, and then if they want to upgrade to that security license, you can then purchase the bundle pack and add on to it and you know, provide services to that customer. So again, I think visibility on that information is very important. So I'm going to switch it now over to our Nebula product line. This is our cloud-based solution. It's actually, you know, been super successful over the last couple of years now, that it's really started to explode as more and more people are realizing, hey, everything managed in the cloud is a good thing. And having a whole solution of firewalls, gateways, switches, and wireless to be in the cloud is a huge advantage for management, for deployment, especially in this day and age, right? Where we're remote everything, and we're distanceless everything, and we are you know, contactless everything as well, right? So this actually provides you a way to still do installations in kind of a remote or a distance way, or even contactless, where you don't have to interact with the customer themselves. You can deliver a box, and I'll show you how it is. It's free network management, so we have on the baseline of these Nebula products, you can use them for free. And so we have a free service that provides, you know, some baseline applications and feature sets. You can set it up without even unboxing it, meaning that you can actually register your device into the Nebula cloud using an app or typing in the serial and MAC address that you could find on the box to apply it into your account. So once you've done that, that box could just be shipped off to the customer. You can be pre-programming things. You can add, you know, its SSIDs. You can set up its security ports and everything. And once it gets plugged in, then it goes online. So once you plug it in, it only takes a few minutes for it to either grab its firmware. It then goes, hey, who do I belong to? And it, you know, the cloud says you belong to, you know, your partner A. And so partner A's account, and it goes, okay, it belongs to this customer, this site, and then sends its configurations. And now it's all, you know, up and running after it's been plugged in. So it just needs somebody, maybe not even technical. You can do a self-install kit that says, hey, plug in your internet connection goes into the WAN of this gateway. And you can even pre-label it if you want to. Then you go, hey, plug this Ethernet cable into of your switch into this port, you know, into LAN 1 port, and then the access point, plug it into port 1 on the switch, the PoE switch. And of course, then that gets all powered up, and now you have access in the cloud to be able to manage it. So you can manage it, you know, and without even any extra hardware, you know, besides the devices themselves. You don't need an extra key. You don't need a cloud key. You don't need any extra software to install on a server to get remote access, those kinds of things. You don't have to turn on VPN, everything. It's all encrypted within the devices themselves as they talk to the Nebula cloud. Now, the cool thing is you don't have to use our gateway switches and access points all in one. You can pick and choose. So we have some customers who only use our access points in their deployment for Nebula, some that use just our switches, and then some just use our gateways. But, you know, we have many of them that do use the entire solution because it's just a nice single pane of glass of all your networking solutions, and you have access to anywhere you go, anytime, through mobile devices, through tablets, through your PCs, through your laptops, Anywhere, again, you have internet connectivity, you have access to either do modifications, edit everything, just as you were sitting in an office itself. So you can manage all of your clients in a multi-tenant, multi-organizational kind of flow. So we have different organizations you can set up, right? So you can have customer A, customer B, customer C. Customer A may have 15 different locations that you have there. So again, it's that kind of multi-tiered level that helps you manage it. And it gives you an entire view of what's going on. So you can look at the entire organization as a dashboard view, or you can drill into each one of the locations to see, okay, what are the status of the APs, the switches, the gateways, the clients, what's your PoE power consumption, what's the throughput, you have your web, what kind of web traffic, who's the top users, locations on a map of your organization. So again, just gives you a lot of those kinds of things to have views of. You can also see what your devices are connected to that network as well within that organization. So this really helps with like the troubleshooting of people on Wi-Fi. So here in this example, you'll see, hey, I can see that work laptop has a signal strength of 57 dBm. Okay, it's great connectivity. But then somebody else is at 70, they're at 80 dBm, and you're going, well, that's already on the threshold of it's going to start to maybe drop off. You can either find out, hey, what's going on, where they're at. Maybe they are, if they're having issues, you can say, well, where are you sitting? And based on that information and some of the signal strength information, you can go out and say, okay, well, we need to put another access point in this general area, right? So we have that visibility through that. So again, it helps you to troubleshoot, helps you get insight of what's going on as well. What kind of PoE consumption is going on your switches. Again, a lot of visibility, a lot of insight that you can drill into to find out, hey, what's going on, to troubleshoot, also to take action. You can see all of the port utilizations on your switches. You can reboot power on individual ports. You can reboot the switch. You can look at your MAC tables. You can do even some live tools like pinging some web addressings, so some web address, and be able to kind of trace between, hey, is it a switch issue? Is it a network issue? Where does it stop, right? You can find out if you can reach places and use this tool to troubleshoot. Oh, and we did mention it was free. So we do provide that free service, but you can also go to a paid service of model. So we call it Nebula Flex because the product can be in standalone or be in cloud, but also be a free mode or a paid version. So the free mode, again, does have some limitations. So Nebula Flex gives you still the dual mode functionality. You can migrate from your standalone to the Flex. It gives you some central management from the Nebula, it includes lifetime warranty, but the Pro, it gives you 1 year professional pack. It gives you a lot more functionalities, features like machine learning, advanced monitoring features. So if you are a VAR that is looking to do cloud management, you definitely need to go to the Nebula Flex Pro to be able to do some of these features like Wi-Fi health checks, dealing with IGMP, smart antenna features, some technologies that we've designed specifically for the professional usage. Now, of course, you have budgets and your customers may not want to have to pay for a managed service or cloud. So that's why we still offer that Flex, the free version of Nebula over there. But we also have licenses that support lifetime license for the Pro Pack. So you can actually provide a one-time pay of a seat in your organization or that organization for, let's say, an access point. And so the cloud seat on that is paid for the lifetime of Nebula. And so Nebula, even if you switch out the product in the future, it will still, and you put a new product in there, it will still hold a lifetime license on it. So you never have to pay for cloud again for that access point spot for that customer. So that's definitely a way that most of our partners who are doing managed services are doing it right now. They have an initial just CapEx, and then they don't have to pay for it for the rest of their service plan. So over time, they basically are just using the cloud service to continue to get recurring revenue. Your network can also be visualized. So this is part of kind of the professional pack. It can self-detect what things are connected to what within the network and provide you a visualization of that network. Again, helps you to troubleshoot. Maybe something is connected wrong. You can also see that. We've also added features like IPTV, feature functionalities into Nebula that lets you get information from all the multicast and IGMP from different video over IP. So you can monitor and report on the different channels, and it also optimizes the network based on machine learning on how to kind of optimize that. Because you're having video, you have data, you have voice, probably all in the same network. And then of course, getting the advanced reporting information from that. So here's an example of some of that IPTV reporting. You have a kind of a dashboard that gives you some insights. It gives you a channel summary of the last 30 days, what channels people were watching in that hotel or in that, the usage of this IPTV. Machine learning can tell you how to improve on your network, and it also helps you to provide information on what it's optimized within your network as well. So that was Nebula. And so I'm going to move now into Wi-Fi. I know this is like a lot of slides. It's a lot of information. It's because we have so many things and we want to cover as much as we can. Again, you can always rewind. You can always look at, watch the recording of this if there's certain sections that you want to see again. Of course, there's breakdowns when we have specific topics on either just Wi-Fi or just Nebula, just security. There are webinars that are recorded as well. You can find on YouTube, on Facebook, that explains those features and those kinds of products more in depth. So I'm giving you kind of an overall view of everything, so you kind of have an idea of what Zyxel provides and help to trigger in your mind. One of the things I want people to recognize or realize is when they think of anything with networking for small businesses, I want them to go, I wonder if Zyxel has something. And typically we do. And so we usually have everything that you would need in the entire network for small businesses. So this is just a quick, compressed version of everything that we want you to focus on. The product line goes even beyond what we present here, but these are kind of our main, key, bread and butter type products that we want you to know, and the technologies we want you to know about. So some of the pain points of Wi-Fi is that you've added new networks, you added more APs, you use the new technologies, but you still don't get the performance that you want. So why did these issues happen when we have those kinds of pain points? We've all done that. We put in an AP and then we put another AP and we're like, we still don't get any improvement of coverage or anything like that. So what happens? Let's go back and let's take a look at some of the basics. So the issue typically is that Wi-Fi, in order to get faster speeds, has to use bigger channel widths, right? So there's only the spectrum of this much, let's say, bandwidth. And initially, when you're doing Wi-Fi, you were just doing smaller channels. So the speeds were slower, right? And then so they made technology that would use more channels that would use more bandwidth, so you got faster speeds. But the problem is then you have less channels that were separated from each other. And then of course you got to a really big one, and so then now there's only like 2 channels, right? And so you're really limited on when you're deploying multiple access points in a coverage area. It's great for a single access point and there's nobody around you. But if there's another access point using another channel that's too close, you're going to get interference. And this is what we call co-channel interference. And this is the #1 reason why your Wi-Fi may have great signal, but can't pass any traffic. And we've all seen that. I think there's a lot of memes out there where it's like, well, the Wi-Fi bar is up at 5. That means you might get okay, but anything less than that is like you can't transfer anything, right? And that's kind of the typical mentality that happens. So what is smart antenna? Well, you have to use smart antenna to kind of maintain that, to manage your co-channel interference. And so let's take a look at what static antenna, a non-smart antenna. It's just your typical coverage, right? You have an omnidirectional antenna and it's just providing coverage in an area. If you have some sort of interference, co-channel interference that's nearby, either non-Wi-Fi interference or other access points in the area, that can all cause interference. So that's causing co-channel interference, meaning that the clients are trying to send data but can't, and it's like it's interrupting it or it's not allowing it to pass correctly, so it has to retry that traffic, and if you have more devices, it's just it exacerbates the issue. So that's what happens. So in smart antenna, what smart antenna does is that it actually looks at 700 different patterns. So if there's interference, let's say from that same source there, we can actually optimize the configuration to look for the most optimal shape of the antenna, the beam, so that it can actually listen to a client device without and mitigating interference. So in this particular example, I always use this as an example. If I was the access point and you were the client, if I cup my hands this way, I'm going to talk lower, but you can hear me louder, right? Because a lot of my energy, a lot of the voice is going in that direction. At the same time, I'm also cupping my hands to listen at the same time. So my send and receive information is all focused into an area. And so I can't hear things that are happening behind me as well, right? So that's what Smart Antenna does. And even if the client moves around, it will also reshape itself and find the best best optimized pattern, because co-channel interference is like just merging. People are just constantly talking, and nobody's getting a conversation through. Or in this particular case, they're merging and they're colliding the data, and so it has to retry again. So we have to keep constantly. You can see if there's more and more traffic, more and more devices, it does some bad things. So Smart Antenna allows for you to increase capacity, reduce interference, increase the coverage in the product, both in 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So this is just a repeat of that other one. So we've also designed our hardware in a way that we can offer to you lifetime hardware warranty on the product because of the way we've designed our antennas, our shielding to prevent interference, also the shielding on the back there to kind of dissipate heat and also provide more shielding. So it's all about providing a robust device that is made to be optimized against those kinds of interference and wireless co-channel interference. So again, smart antenna technology, you'll see in our highest end models for that patented technology, and the lower ends are using more of our standard. So again, it depends on your usage, their budget. I would suggest smart antennas is for your schools, your hospitalities, anywhere, the convention centers that have high density usage. But if you're also looking for better coverage, because your standard access point doesn't work very well, the smart antenna, because of its beam capabilities and its dynamic that dynamic smart antenna technology, it's able to actually provide you better coverage and better throughput. So we have people who've deployed a smart antenna solution even in their home and home office that gives them much better coverage because their house is a lot bigger, or there's a lot more things in the area that might be causing interference. So on our Nebula Flex lines, we have these models. These are our lower end kind of static modeling here. And then our access points, our NAP access points, are dedicated for Nebula, meaning that it already comes with a whole year's worth of service included with it in the professional pack. And then these ones are triple mode. You can use them as standalone, you can use them in a controller, or you can use them in Nebula Pro or Flex, whatever you may decide. But it comes with Pro already in a lot of these models. So again, depending on which model, we're here to help you figure out, hey, what's the best one for your application and also to fit your budget, right? So we have two things that we're trying to look to try to scale at. What is your technology that you want, and at what budget, right? So we have to find that balance where it's maybe, a sacrifice of not the top of the line technology and, not the lowest end, budget, right? So we have to find that balance when we're speccing out your applications. Okay, so those two models didn't have the Nebula support. We have outdoor versions as well. So we've just released our WAX models in our Wi-Fi 6 product line. So you have access to our WAX 650S, which we actually are running a cool promotion right now. It's basically, if you buy 4 WAX 650Ss, you get the multi-gig 10 gig PoE switch that can power them all up for free. So we have that. We also have a bundled promo right now that if you buy 3 WAX 650Ss, you get a WAX 650 for free. So it's buy 3, get 1 free, or you buy 4 and get a switch free. We also have a WAX 510 promo that's going on. I think it's, if you buy the 5 WAXs, you get a GS 1350 switch that will power all of those devices on that. Now, keep in mind too, WAX for the highest end model, the one that's doing the multi-radios, doing the 4x4, it requires you to actually go to the PoE++, the 60 watt standard. So be careful when you're deploying Wi-Fi 6, is that most switch networks that are out there now they're just using your AT 30 watt standard, right? It's still high powered, but it's only a 30 watt. You won't get the maximum functionality and throughput performance of a WAX650S without a multi-gig switch, because it's using 2.5 gigs on the Ethernet, and it uses 31 watts at full power. So you need to have enough power for it to perform. So that's why we're giving away that XS1930 switch. It is a multi-gig, multi-gig up to 10 gigs switch with a PoE++, 60 watt power standards and a high power budget. So it's an 8-port switch that lets you do that. So again, keep that in mind when you are deploying Wi-Fi 6. So we have our lower end to our higher end. There's a couple of these models that are not released yet, but you can find that in when you talk to our sales rep. All right, so let's go now to switching. Let's switch gears, like I usually say, to the switch network. I think it's really important about switches to understand its naming convention here at Zyxel. We pretty much follow similar standards to other competitors. So ES stands for just an Ethernet switch. It goes up to 100 megabits per second on the ports. GS is a gigabit switch. It goes up to 1 gig on the ports. XS is Roman numeral for 10, so it's a 10 gig switch. So all the ports typically support 10 gig or multi-gig, so more than 1 gig, like the example I'm gonna show you in a bit. The XGS is a little trickier. It's traditionally a gigabit switch on its main ports, but it has a 10 gig uplink, or has dedicated 10 gig uplink ports, right? So that's the XGS. The MGS is a metro Ethernet switch. Typically, it's a carrier switch. Kind of sometimes has some temperature ranges. Usually, it has like DC power capabilities on them. If it ends in P or HP, it's a PoE switch. If it ends in an F, it's a fiber switch. So it has mainly fiber ports. So switch combo ports, we use that in our datasheet information. It just means that they're combos, means that you can use the Ethernet port or the fiber SFP. They share the same port number, so you can't plug in both an Ethernet and a fiber in that same port number at the same time. So it won't work that way. You have to choose one or the other. All right, but it allows for you to be flexible if you want to use copper or if you want to use fiber to do your uplinks. And again, if there is a fiber switch, it usually has SFP, which is gigabit, or SFP plus ports, which is 10 gig fiber. All right, so you require a specific transceiver models to use those fiber connections. You can also stack the switches in some of these models, and allows for you to use a 10 gig direct attached cable, a DAC, that uplinks those switches together and to become a virtual switch in the physical stack there. And then PoE, the different PoE information you want to know. PoE has typically 15.4 watts if you're using 802.3 AF standard. If you're using the AT standard, which has been the current utilization, or the current PoE switch models that are out there now, it uses a 30 watt standard. And now we've introduced a 60 watt standard called PoE++ or Ultra PoE. And that provides, it's 802.3 BT, and it provides 60 watt, up to 60 watts of power on an Ethernet port. So understand some benefits. PoE is probably the #1 application that is being used, being sold, right? We're powering up access points, we're powering up IP cameras, we're powering up phones, conference phones. So we're powering, security panels and a lot of those other things, right? So there's a lot of things that PoE use. And then of course, with now BT power, you actually can power even console devices, or computers, or small computers that are providing an interface console. So there's a lot of those kind of panels applications that PoE is very important for. Even PoE for industrial lighting now is a huge industry as well, for different sensors and things. But for us, for the small business, we want to manage our PoE budget well. And so we use what we call intelligent PoE. We detect the actual power draw that's coming from the device that it needs, and then using that to allocate against the budget. And I'll tell you a little bit how that benefits and how Zyxel makes that different. And you also are able to control the PoE from each port, being able to look at what's the power draw, be able to reset it, be able to reschedule it. You can schedule access points to turn off. You can schedule access points to do a reboot overnight, whatever you maybe want to do with those, being able to schedule it. So allocated PoE, we use smart PoE. So typically, if it's classified, let's say in this case, an AF standard, it uses 15.4 watts. If you want to power up 24 phones, it's going to use only 260 watts. So it's going to be well within the range of 375. I'm sorry, classification is at 369. If you use consumption mode, the phones only use 9 watts. So there's a lot of wasted power, budgeted power that's going into classification mode. So instead, with consumption mode, in this example, it only uses 216 watts. So either way, it's okay. But the problem typically is now when you're using other devices that are using more power. So in a, let's say, pan-tilt zoom camera, in this case, we want to power up 20 of these devices, but it uses 30 watt standard as a classification. So if you wanted to power up 20 devices, you're going to need a budget that's 600 watts. So you're going to have to pay more for that power just to get the devices to all power up. Now with Zyxel's consumption mode, the device actually only uses 16 watts, right? So we can use 16 watts times the 20 devices we want to power up. So in consumption mode, your wattage budget is only showing 320 watts actually being used. So against the 375 watts of that switch, it actually is perfectly fine. So even though it is less power in terms of its overall budget, it can still do more than a 500 watt non-intelligent a PoE switch, right? So if you had a competitor that has a 500 watt power supply, yeah, great, it has 500 watts, but it's all doing classification. You still can't power more than 20 of those devices up, right? So again, this is how we maximize the power. Also from a energy consumption for that switch as well is going to be reduced because our budget doesn't have to be 700 watts or whatever it is to just to be able to allow for those devices to come up, even though they are only drawing a smaller amount. So we have ranges of our PoE from the low end to the higher end up to 1,000 watts if you get a dual power supply in our XGS like 3700 series models. And this is kind of our bread and butter product here for our small businesses, for partners. This is what we sell most of. GS 1920s series, 1930 series for 10 gig. And then of course our XS 1930 series with the PoE multi-gig ports with BT, PoE++ capabilities. So that's going to be the model that you're going to use for all of your Wi-Fi 6 deployments or to provide multi-gig connectivity or Ethernet. So being able to offer 1 gig, 2.5, 10 gig, 5 gig on those ports. And of course, all of these models actually will work in Nebula. So you can use it in the free mode as Nebula Flex, or you can add on the professional pack to get to the Nebula Pro functionalities. So you have the first option here, the GS is a gigabit switch, the XGS 1930s, that's our gigabit switches with 10 gig uplinks. And then on the end here is our 1930 switch that is just our multi-gig switch. All right, so this is just kind of a quick what it looks like. You can again find the data sheets. We have cheat sheets and things like that to kind of explain what information, which models you can use. Again, we're here to help you to provide as much information to help you with your applications, what products to use. So this is our newest switch, obviously 10 times more throughput because it supports up to 10 gig on existing Cat5e or Cat6a cabling. So you just have to notice though, in Cat5e, you cannot go 10 gig. You have to go to a Cat6 cable to go 10 gig at 55 meters distance. But if you use Cat6a, then you can go the full 100 meters of Ethernet. So, but either way, you can find, if it's as long as it's within the 100 meters, it should be, fine on most cases. So that's our XS 1930s. We have multi LEDs, cool, really quiet fan running. So if you have it in the office, it's very quiet. Dedicated uplinks for 10 gig available. Again, support for 60 watts PoE. That's the most important, I think. So on this 8-port switch, it has as much power as most of our previous kind of 24-port switches, right? 375 watts on just 8 ports for PoE. So again, we're budgeting quite a bit for just making sure that it has enough power to power today's applications using multi-gig and higher power. All right, so that's just a quick introduction. We do have some other products out there too, like our IP surveillance cameras that we're running a promotion now through our distribution channels. But I need to update this this slide here. On the bronze level, we just recently launched like a single digit margin capabilities at distribution. When you first sign up to the partner program, you sit at the silver level. And of course, if you at any point in time between now and we evaluate twice a year on terms of your status, unless you move up. So let's say this month you had a great month and you're able to support, and you got up to 12K, for that time period. So we allow for you in the 6 months period, if you can hit 12K in sales, then you get to be in the gold status. But that gives you the most double-digit margin access through distribution, gives you access to lead referrals, sales engineer access, advanced replacement, all those things. So definitely gold is where you want to be. And 12K is really not that much. It's 2K a month for 6 months. And with a lot of the security packages, if you sell a whole solution to a customer, it's like doing 2 installations a month, right? And you'll hit gold status. So if this is your business and this is your networking, a way of living, or this is what you do as a business, then definitely 2K a month in sales is going to be nothing to you. So it's definitely encouraging. We leave the bar low to make sure that you have access to it, if you can, just with minimal effort. Just we want you to be rewarded for your loyalty to using Zyxel. So if you're thinking about joining a program, it's all free. You just have to maintain those levels of sales in order to keep in those tier groups. And of course, after 6 months, it's usually in February and in July that we usually evaluate where you stand. And if we need to, we'll bump you down or move you where it needs to go. But again, if you hit your goals within just 2 or 3 months of starting here at Zyxel, then we will immediately bump you to the gold status so you can get the higher tier discounts in the gold status. But we use D&H, Ingram Micro, Synnex, Wave, and Target distribution for our distribution partners. So that's it. So I went through probably about 115 slides, I believe, in 60 minutes. So we have 2 minutes left. But if you have any questions, please feel free to ask either right now in the Q&A section, or if you are wondering, hey, how do I ask a question? Send me an email. My email is tri@zyxel.com. Feel free to send out an email, or you can reach out to your sales manager or your account manager and ask any of the questions there. We're here to help you. If we need to bring on people to help you figure out what kind of solutions we should put in, what gateway, what switch we should choose, what access points, we can set it up so we can say, hey, this is probably a good, better, best for your access points. This is good, better, best for your switches. This is probably the gateway you need to use. And then you can present that to your customer and provide them options on what to use here at Zyxel. So we really are here to kind of help you. We want to be your networking ally. We want to be partners with you and help you through any learning curves that you may have. We're launching an educational site that takes you through kind of modules that help you learn more about how to use Nebula, maybe some of the pitfalls that you may encounter that we want you to avoid, how to configure them, how to do a lot of different things for that, and also our security line as well. So a lot of our popular products will have educational things there. If you're looking for comparison charts, battle cards against competitors, which Nebula product to use, or when to use ProPack versus Nebula free. We have battle cards and information cards that you can request from your sales rep, and they should be able to provide that to you and help you out with those build outs. All right. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me, tri@zyxel.com. If not, thank you for spending this last 60 minutes with me. I know it's busy time for you, and I appreciate you putting that time aside to learning more about Zyxel and the products that we have here. So until next time, we'll talk again in a couple of weeks probably, and at another tech talk. And until then, have a thank you for being our partner or choosing to being one of our partners. And we look forward to doing business and partnering with you again soon. Until then, take care.